Welcome back to Surviving and Thriving, where we share with you the things that we have learned as we have transitioned our family from struggling to survive disease to thriving, right smack dab in the midst of it, in the hopes that something that we share with you will help you, enlighten you, and encourage you as you transition yourself from struggling to survive disease to thriving, right smack dab in the midst of it. It is important that oftentimes you go back and you review your walk with health issues. Now, when you review your walk with health issues, it can oftentimes get you down and depressed if you're just looking at the bad parts of feeling sad for yourself and looking at the struggles. So when you review, I wouldn't suggest you go back and just be like, oh, look what I went through. Woe is me. Woe is me never gets you where you want to go. It's never healthy. It's never going to progress you. You never want to look back and look at a woe is me, but you do want to look back, analyze, criticize, and the goal of it is to see what you can change. But most often, you need to look back to see how far you have come, to get a sense of gratefulness, to get a sense of gratitude, to encourage yourself to keep going forward because you can see where you once were and how you've progressed and how you've done better. Now, I don't usually go back and look at stuff when I'm going through a hard time. If I'm going through a hard time, I don't go back and look and see how I've progressed because at that time I'm not doing too well and I'm not going to see a lot of progression. I might see myself not able to do some things I once was doing before or in a not better place at that time. So when you're going through hard times, you don't want to look back to see how far you progress. When you're in the middle of a hard time, you do want to go back and look back to remember how you've gone through bad times before and how you've came out. How when you didn't know there was going to be a way before, a way came forth. Those are the things that you want to look at to encourage yourself to go through a hard time when you're going through it this time, right? Now, when you're not in a hard time, you want to go back and look because it'll give you a sense of gratitude, gratefulness, grateful that you made it through. You'll see some things that you didn't see at the time because you were so busy with everything going around you. You might not realize there's some people you didn't thank. You might not realize some of the things that have happened to you because you were so knee deep in what was going on, you didn't have a chance to really see clearly. And so sometimes hindsight, going back and looking, you can learn a lot from it, see what you can do better from it. But also when you look back, it's encouraging because you can look and say, you know what, when I thought I wanted to give up here and I thought wasn't working for me and I kept doing it anyway, and then you can look at yourself today and say, wow, it was working for me and I didn't know it. I ended up, progressing further than I thought that I would progress at that time. So it's good to go back and look, but I would highly suggest that when you go back and you look and you go back and evaluate, keep it on the positive side. Don't keep it on the bad side. There's a lot of things, you guys, that I can go back and look at and get depressed about and make me want to give up. Don't look at it like that. I don't go back and I don't mourn things that I've gone through. So every year when Christmas comes, there's been a few Christmases where I was in the hospital on Christmas. I went to the hospital on Christmas, or I was already in the hospital on Christmas, or I was home but I was struggling to make it to the day after Christmas before I went to the hospital. So every time Christmas comes, you guys, I don't look back and be like, oh Lord, remember what happened last year at Christmas time? Oh, it was so terrible. I don't do that, you guys. When I look back, I see, okay, last year on Christmas, this is where I was. The Christmas before that, this is where I was. I might have had this happen a few Christmases, but then I usually put my hands up and say, thank you, Jesus, I ain't in the hospital this year. Or it's not as bad as it was that year. Or, something like that. I might look back and give praise and be grateful because I'm not in the situation I was before, but I don't look back and mourn what happened the year before. One of the reasons for that, you guys, is because, going with the Christmas analogy, I still celebrated Christmas no matter what situation I was in, whether I was in a hospital, in a bad place, drugged up or not, in a hospital and on pain pills. It didn't matter. I still celebrated no matter where I was. And then if I got out of the hospital, we celebrated again once I got home. So I didn't allow it to be a bad memories. That went for birthdays, that went for Thanksgiving. You name the holiday, you name the special day, I've experienced it. I don't look back at that and I don't mourn that. I don't mourn the loss of anything in my journey because I know that either A, I can get it back, or B, I've already gotten it back. But I don't mourn the loss. I don't look back in my past to depress me or to, I guess it's the mosquitoes. I don't look at it to depress me or to defeat me. I look at it for a positive way. But I would suggest you go back and you look back sometimes for a positive, to see how what you've gone through has changed you for the better, to see the things that you benefit from what you have gone through. There is benefit in there if you choose to look at it and see it. I know that, like, when you're dealing with physical things, you know, you might not have been able to do one thing in one season, but you might find yourself having been able to do it in another season. I know there's many times I've gone back and looked with having to learn how to walk all over again and rehabbing my body all over again, and being told it would be a couple years before I would, you know, get out of the wheelchair and make it to the walker to be able to stand, and to say that's not acceptable for me. And I fought, you guys, like the Dickens, working hard daily on my own and with other people to get my body to where it needed to be. And while I was in it, I was frustrated. While I was going through it, being frustrated, but then being able to go back and look back later on and say, wow, I progressed faster than they said. I was off that wheelchair, and out of that wheelchair and off that walker within a few months, you know. But sometimes you have to stop and be able to look back and see how far you've came, because when you're in it, you don't see the progress. When you're in it, it feels like it's taken forever and it's not worth it. But sometimes when you stop and you look back, you'll see that you've accomplished more than you thought that you accomplished. You'll be able to see where things have gotten better where you didn't think it would have gotten better. You'll be able to see how you've been graced to go through things, and at the very least, it will give you a sense of gratefulness. And gratefulness, it will take you far. Believe me, it'll take you through a lot. So I hope something in there was helpful for you. Remember, in all things, do you. Until next time, bye.